Welcome back to Chainsawman, and welcome back to Group Gushing. It sounds really bad when I put it like that, but we're all going to be here collectively excited for this week's episode because, once again, absolutely brilliant. The direction, the style, the emotion, all of the thought, hard work, and talent going into adapting Fujimoto's manga is impeccable. And it's always a treat to experience it every single week, and sometimes you never really know what you're going to get because there's so much identity and authenticity going in from directors with their episodes and whatever they're directing or producing. You're always going to get something a little bit different, something a little bit more stylized this way or that way, and I appreciate this. I wouldn't say it's jarring or distracting where each episode is so entirely different from one another, but for me it adds to this overall creative pot that is the Chainsaw Man experience. Like this episode is very much different to episode 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. To start things off simply, and not to get on anyone's bad side, the ending. Very easy this time around, nothing all too crazy, but visually very creative. It's all entirely connected to the hotel and everything that's going on currently, but it still kind of plays into that creative flair or spark with the individuals that are obviously working on it. The music, very nice. The symbolism, very interesting. And overall, just a really solid ending for this episode. It's fitting, really. Again, not over the top, not crazy, but just nice. I appreciate it. I thought it was well done. There is a ton of amazing moments within this episode, and a ton of really interesting, I guess, creative decisions on how to visually depict things, right? Especially when it comes to characters, when it comes to their backstories, flashbacks, etc. As always, I appreciate how they frame a lot of these things. Obviously, it's very stylistic to the more movie sense, which is, again, what Fujimoto is inherently inspired by constantly with his manga. So they're taking that similar approach to pay respect within the anime, and you get to see that constantly, every single week. The one thing that I really appreciate that you'll probably see no one talk about because it's not really a crazy thing, but something that I just enjoy, is how they actually are able to pace the characters really well. Not narratively, but literally. Think about it like this. We're in a very cramped hallway, and sometimes it can get pretty confusing with everything that's going on. You have to be pretty choicey and creative with how you mesh your characters together. Of course, you don't want them bunched up or combined so you can't tell who's who. You don't want to feel forced into viewing this person, and you don't want to be too far back for no reason. So how do you work around that? Something very much simple that they do is they distort the lens. They utilize a fisheye type effect, which basically allows you to see more of the corners of the hallway and stops it from feeling less cramped. There's an upside and a downside to this. The downside isn't all too bad, but the upside's really good. Because of this effect, you have a lot of focus on the subject that's within frame. It could be a character, it could be an action or a movement, or it could just be like a panning shot of some kind, right? But whatever's in there, you're gonna have a lot of focus, and sometimes it's a little bit unproportionate because that's kind of the whole point of a fisheye lens, but it exaggerates things quite a lot. And you'll notice this with Kobeni. They use it a lot with her because she is using a lot of facial expressions. She's very emotional, very anxiety driven. So when she is the subject with the fisheye lens, a ton of beautiful focus. When it comes to the downside, I would say if you're not enjoying the subject, or if you feel it's a little bit too overwhelming, it's because of that. I think a slight portion of people may have an issue with Kobeni, specifically because of this reason. She takes up a lot of the screen. She's very overpowering, very overwhelming, and of course you're not mentally prepped for her. She is definitely the shy, quirky, and anxious individual, but she's also very outspoken in that regard. She's very loud in her emotions, and because of that you get kind of like a perfect storm situation. So yes, you get this beautiful portrayal of her character, you understand her, you're getting this focus towards her, but it may be just a tad bit overwhelming. Personally for myself, I didn't mind it. I obviously know what to expect when it comes to Kobeni and a lot of these characters, but it was always very interesting to myself to see how they would go about framing her. And you'll notice a lot of the time she is the only person in frame, or she's right up towards the camera, so to speak. That's the whole point. That's the intention. She's meant to steal the scene quite literally and forcefully, so you're only paying attention to her. And then they add on top of that the fisheye lens so you can see more of the background, and it kind of distorts her so it's a lot more dramatic. I appreciate this. Now I will say, if you don't like Kobeni, give it some time. This is probably the only point in the story where she's this obnoxious, quote unquote, or forceful, I would say. And it's because of the situation that they're dealing with, of course, her character, but also where it's actually taking place in this very cramped, tight-cornered corridor/room. Don't get it twisted, this is her character. She does act like this, but there's a lot more to her, if that makes sense. So if you feel yourself in that department, give it some time, you will see a lot from her and how she grows throughout the story, how she connects and communicates with characters. This is her first outing as an individual, and she put on a show, that's for sure. I think it's funny that I talk about this because even though she pulls so much attention and she has these incredible vocal moments, just being very loud and scared and worried about the situation, someone that equally steals just as much as the spotlight is Himeno. I said something in the previous video for the last episode and saying that both Himeno and Kobeni are going to steal a lot of the spotlight from the other characters because they are the newest individuals and they need a lot of attention for you to be connected to them. They're important, they're primary characters, and they will become part of the main fold. This is that intention. You're seeing it unravel in real time. I think for a lot of people, Himeno is going to be a very curious individual because she has a lot going on. She puts up this very strong, powerful front, but you also know a little bit about her past, the hardships that she has faced. But then you also see this new bond and building with Aki. And this is meant to double back as double development. You're growing to love Himeno, but also you're fueling Aki forward. And you'll probably notice this throughout a lot of the episodes that Aki is kind of like the main figure. They give him a lot of attention, and there's a very great reason for this. You will see it within the future. You will constantly see it play this way, but it has a very significant payoff. I think this is the first episode where you see kind of a bit of a twist, or a turn, I should say, within Aki's personality, specifically towards Denji and power and this situation in itself, which is a make or break situation. Their backs are quite literally against the wall, and the only thing that this devil wants is Denji, but Aki isn't ready to give him up. Now, if this was Aki only 3-4 episodes ago, he probably would have done it instantly, but watching Aki grow with Denji very slowly but beautifully is a great experience, and you're seeing the earliest signs of this friendship that they're actually building, this bond. So you get a bond for Himeno and Aki, but then you get the connection to that with Aki and Denji, as well as power. I really enjoy how it flips between these. It paces the episode really well, and you'll notice that Denji and power pretty much take a back seat for the whole episode. It's perfectly fine. You're either focusing on Kobeni, having a mental breakdown, or Himeno and Aki. And visually, I think just the portrayal of everything is really beautiful, especially for the Himeno stuff. They like to use a lot of wide angles and these massive, grand depictions of just things going on within her life, which really slows down the episode, but it's for the purpose of sitting within the moment. These flashbacks are pretty quick, and you would think, oh, maybe they would want to utilize every single moment and pile in a bunch of information. That's not necessarily the case. Instead, they allow us as viewers to sit within this bonding moment, I guess, for example, between Aki and Himeno. And it's really simple stuff. So even though you're not directly given the information, visually, it's told to you. Action-wise, it's told to you. How Himeno looks at Aki, the environment within the background, the slow, tense build-up of emotions, it works beautifully. I think they captured her extremely well. And whatever group, collective of people are doing the music, bravo, splendid. Just, I could kiss you on the forehead. Every single week, they know exactly what type of music is going to be best fitted for these scenes. It was very much noticeable in the Himeno flashback. That's where you hear these slight guitars and piano work, and it never overshadows the moment, but it just adds so much more to the scene. It goes back into that information aid where they don't have to narratively give you everything so you understand. They can just provide it through the visuals. They can provide it even through the music, so you understand the emotion that's going on within this scene without any words potentially even being spoken. That is a powerful tool to have, and they constantly use it so incredibly well. A big emphasis on this episode, facial expressions. You'll see it constantly. Kobeni is the go-to for it, but even some moments with Denji and Power is really great. They break up a lot of the intensity of this episode really well, obviously within their own comedic way, but you'll notice that their comedy is more so spliced onto the end, and it's used, I would say, as a transition period to go on to the next scene or the next action taking place. Sometimes it interrupts, which is its purpose, but it's usually only for a second or two. Denji going to sleep, for example, is a really nice transition scene. It's simple because everyone stops and looks at him and is like, wow, he really fell asleep in this situation. And then when he wakes up, we move on to the next scene. Or even when Power is laughing at Kobeni, it's a stressful moment and then it's completely elevated in a different direction that's comedic because Power's laughing so heavily. And then everyone's piling onto Power for making fun of Kobeni for being scared. Again, it's a great way to keep you on your toes while still keeping true to a portion of Fujimoto's manga, which obviously I appreciate every single week. I think lastly, just to end it off, the portrayal of the Eternity Devil is brilliant, but I do love the sheer unknown factor that comes with the Eternity Devil, especially because it elevates elevates the intensity of all of these characters interacting with each other. They're basically dwindling down on time. They're running out of food. They're trying to get rid of Denji. It's very chaotic and all over the place, but because of this intensive atmosphere that lays over the top of it, it feels very much consistent. And then when you get to the end of the episode, you have this cathartic understanding of what's about to happen and really just effortlessly leads you into the next episode. There's something really addicting or alluring to that end scene where Denji specifically jumps into the Eternity Devil's mouth. Obviously him accepting that potentially he may die, but he's going to go out swinging and it's going to hurt like hell, not only for himself, but for this devil. I love that descent into the mouth. I think they've done a wonderful job. As usual, I am extremely excited for next week. It's going to be fun, it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be filled with so much action, and I can't wait. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the episode right now. Thank you.